It's a warm welcome to GRTS News. We're broadcasting for viewers in the Gambia and around the world. Our top stories this hour. The Vice President, Dr. Aissatou Touré, joins over 16 heads of state in the Turkish capital, Istanbul, for the third Turkey-Africa Partnership Summit. Celebrating 26 years of service, the Gambia Radio and Television Services continues to build on gains made in the broadcast industry in the Gambia. Today is International Migrants Day. GRTS examines the migration trend in the Gambia and how the pursuit for socio-economic advancements is driving migration figures in the country. 30 years in the media industry, the Point newspaper remains primed and poised to pursue a cause that it firmly believes in. We will go up close with the co-founder of the paper later on the program. Now, on the internationals, tension is flaring in Cameroon, where at least 100,000 people fled to neighboring countries as intercommunal violence broke out in the country. Elsewhere, authorities in the Democratic Republic of Congo declared the country Ebola-free as no new case of the disease was recorded in the east of the country for more than 20 days. Now, that's the top of the news with me, Mary Njai Ajayi, and thanks for joining us. Now, the Vice President, Dr. Aissatou Touré, deputizing for His Excellency President Adama Barrow, has joined over 16 heads of state in the Turkish capital, Istanbul, for the third Turkey-Africa Partnership Summit. The summit takes place under the theme Enhanced Partnership for Common Development and Prosperity. During her deliberations, Vice President Touré says the summit carries a great significance amid the COVID-19 pandemic, while calling on African leaders and the Turkish government to be committed to the implementation of the cooperation. Well, here is an excerpt.
This summit carries great significance as it is being held during a post-COVID-19 recovering economy, a difficult time for developing countries like Africa, a period of major global and international transformation. In response to the aspirations of the peoples of Africa and Turkey, it is representing the summit indeed builds a comprehensive framework for expanding relations and to evidence our mutual desire to strengthen our multifaceted partnership for the development of our respective economies. At this juncture, Your Excellencies, I believe that trade, economic and investment cooperation is an important component in Turkey's relations with African countries. Invariably, we all have a stake in ensuring that this partnership works for the best of the people of Africa and Turkey, who constitute the true core of our friendship. African countries have huge potential, and in the process of streamlining economies, many are emerging as real global players and others are flourishing in terms of growth over the past decades. The African continent is open to cooperation with all its partners, most particularly the Republic of Turkey, which is one now becoming a major actor on the world stage and a sincere friend of the African nations. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we hope that at this summit we will be able to lay a solid foundation for the future of Turkish-African cooperation, and at the same time reaffirming the importance of expanding its scale in all areas, including politics, the economy, trade, culture and education, security and peace building, and retaining the national sovereignty of African countries over their resources. Here in Istanbul, and in the service of fulfilling the hopes and aspirations of the African people and their friends in Turkey, I would like to reaffirm that our summit will pass decisions making their interests, facilitate the establishment of constructive strategic relations, and in so doing, give us a new pattern to Turkey-Africa interaction and cooperation. The Gambia welcomes the 2021 Action Plan and the summit declaration. I very much thank you for your high attention on behalf of His Excellency President-elect Adama Barrow. Thank you.
And that was the Vice President, Dr. Aissatou Touré, speaking at the 3rd Turkey-Africa Partnership Summit. Now, celebrating 26 years of service, the Gambia radio and television services continues to build on gains made in the broadcast industry in the country. GRTS, the public broadcaster of the Gambia, is the leading provider of the reliable content in the country. In this excerpt, the Director General of the state broadcaster speaks about the journey thus far. Let's take a listen.
2001 has been a year of challenges, of opportunities and successes for GRTS. Challenges because we had very little financial resources at the time. And successes, opportunities, we were able to receive from government a substantial SAP allocation of 36 million, which the institution has not received for a considerable period of time. Successes, we have made a number of successes, one of which was putting GRTS back on satellite transmission, which a lot of viewers actually wanted. With the satellite, we were able to reconnect with our viewers, our audience, in both the Gambia and abroad. We also acquired essential equipment, like transmitters, like cameras, like vehicles, and this we were able to use successfully in covering the 2021 presidential elections. It really would have been a challenge without the allocation from government. We successfully covered the election in 2020, presidential elections 2021, and even our worst critics, I must say, had been commending the GRTS on this. So it's quite actually an achievement. For the future, GRTS management's objective actually for radio, television and online. That's our objective.
Well, GRTS's Director General there, Mr. Malik Jeng. Now, today is International Migrants Day, December 18th, is set aside by the UN General Assembly to shine the lights on migration issues and celebrate the contribution that migration brings to development of communities, with the Gambia facing an ever-increasing number of migrants both within and outside the country. Efforts are being advanced to examine and possibly address the underlying causes of these movements. However, migration is not all too bad for the country because statistics show overseas remittances of an estimated 118,000 Gambians living abroad account for over 20% of the country's GDP, while rural to urban migration has led to increasing urbanization. Now, while International Migrants Day also drums up support for the protection of the human rights of migrants around the world. To bring the discussion closer to home, we earlier had in our studios the migration officer at the National Youth Council, Mustafa Sonko. Here is an excerpt.
Migration is actually the movement of people, according to International Organization for Migration, because migration itself is a diverse term and there is no acceptable definition of migration. But IOM define migration as the movement of people within a state or across an international border. So it doesn't necessarily mean that migration is actually the movement of people outside the country. Even within the country, there is migration.
Right. Now take us through the migration trend in the Gambia. At what proportion are people moving out?
The number of people moving out in the country is actually plenty, because looking at the statistic that is collected by IOM between 2014 and 2018, more than 35,000 Gambians migrate irregularly who entered in the shores of Italy across the Mediterranean Sea. And then some of them actually opted to return, some of them who were actually in African countries. Now, looking between 2014 and then 2018, 35,000 Gambians entered Italy through the Mediterranean Sea. It tells you that the number of youths that are actually live in this country are so many. That did not actually account for the people who actually live regularly. So, as you have given the statistic, more than 118,000 Gambians are living abroad.
Right.
Yeah.
And we will talk about all the factors momentarily, the impact of migration, like you have mentioned. But the National Youth Council, an organization you work for, has been keeping an eye on this trend. And it's clear that migration, like you said, is not only people moving out of the country to Europe, but it in fact entails within and outside the country. But this is viewed in the negative light by many. Why is this so? When it comes to migration, the negative thought is what pops up in the minds of people.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think this is not the first time people ask this question. And then I believe many of the people, when you talk about migration, what comes into their mind is irregular migration. Migration is not good. And this is actually very false. Migration is in fact part of development. This is why a lot of countries now, as we speak, there is what we call the Global Compact for Migration that promotes safe, orderly, and regular migration. That was actually launched in 2018. The Gambia is not even behind when it comes to migration issues. This is the more reason the Gambia also come with national coordination mechanism on migration in 2019 that is actually headed by the Office of the Vice President to make sure that issues of migration are managed. Under the NCM of the Gambia, we have about 13 thematic working groups: communication, border management, return and reintegration. This is to show that migration is actually something that is positive. People should encourage safe, orderly and regular migration. Migration is development and development is migration. There is no way that we could actually think that migration is actually bad. Migration is not bad. When you check at the development trends of this country, most of the developmental issues in this country are actually projected and actually heard by people who are migrants. We have Gambians who are working in UN. All of them are categorized as migrants. So migration is not actually a bad thing.
Meaning the clear line should be between irregular migration and then migration is a general term.
Definitely,
right.
Regular and irregular migration. Okay. When we talk of irregular migration, that's where the negativity come to practice.
And again, talking about the negative light that people always view migration, the lens that they use to view migration, we still look at it within the national context. Does it have impact on development? You have said it contributes to development, but again, people would complain that people are moving from a certain part of the country to another part of the country where the population there then becomes tense. So does it impact negatively on the development process in those areas as well?
It actually does, you know. We have to look at the both sides. When it comes to the negative aspect of it, because migration is not actually only international.
Right.
When we contextualize the Gambia migration issues that are affecting the Gambia here, that is the rural-urban migration, you will realize that most of the youths are actually leaving the rural areas to come to the urban areas. There is disadvantage. Number one, the population in the urban area will increase. Right now, we've seen the cost of house has already increased. The number of people living in house in urban areas has increased, thereby leaving the farmlands in the hands of the old people. But there is a problem, that is the issue of decentralization. Most of the people living in rural areas coming to the urban areas are doing so because they wanted to have some money, greener pastures, because they believe that the life in the urban area is actually cool and dandy, even though that is not actually the reality. They have to come here for schools, universities, GTTI, Gambia College. For now, we have another Gambia College at Gambia College Annex in Basse that is actually helping to minimize the number of youths that are actually living the rural Gambia to the urban Gambia. But cumulatively, we have to say that it is a little bit negative seeing the rural areas being vacated, living only. Some of them are actually ghost town. You go to the rural areas, what you see is actually disheartening.
Right.
Most of the youths are leaving the rural areas to come here, and you cannot blame them because they actually want to have something back home.
And so as the Gambia joins the international community to observe a more international migrants stay, and then many bodies in the country are focusing on that, but then the National Youth Council is also not left behind.
So,
tell us what exactly you're focusing on as we commemorate this day.
Thank you so much. The National Youth Council, that is actually mandated, that is an act of parliament in 2000, is actually mandated by the government to run youth affairs, advise the minister on youth-related issues. As we speak, as the migration officer at the National Youth Council, the issues of migration are taken seriously because we are represented in all the government agencies when it comes to migration. Just yesterday, we commemorated International Migrants Day with migrants as messengers, that is the MAM volunteers, more than 60 MAM volunteers. These are returnees that actually came from Libya, Germany, and then some of them actually from Dubai, some of them from Lebanon and Egypt, victims of trafficking. So what we actually did yesterday at Paradise Suite with IOM was actually to bring these migrants to the table for them to discuss some of the challenges that they face throughout the journey. And then today I was at Metsi Hotel, Metsi resident with National Human Rights Commission to discuss on issues or advanced issues to make sure that we curb irregular migration, but as well as promote safe, orderly, and regular migration as encapsulated in the Global Compact for Migration.
That was Migration Officer at the National Youth Council, Mustafa Sonko, there talking to us earlier on the news file. Now, 30 years in the media industry, the Point newspaper remains primed and poised to pursue a cause that it firmly believes in. This, however, did not go without battles won, claiming the life of the paper's co-proprietor and managing editor, Data Haidara. To discuss the paper's journey and impact, we spoke to Pap Sen, co-founder of the Point newspaper.
16 December 1991. Myself, late Babukar Gay, and late Data Haidara. But Babukar resigned April 92. He decided to have his own newspaper and radio. We saw a vogue of tabloid newspaper that time. It was not regular, so we took the initiative to continue the struggle that we started with Senegambia Sun, which was financed by the Senegalese daily Le Soleil. During the Confederation 1983 to 89, the paper was on, but after the dissolution of the Confederation, the paper was no longer. So we said, as Gambians, there's a vacuum, so we should fill that vacuum to have a tabloid newspaper. We started with a weekly paper in 19.
Right. You have worked under very challenging circumstances. Now, what kept the Point newspaper going to this day?
First, faith,
Right.
dedication, commitment, and have very good staff, very good support of my advertisers, my readers, all of them, they supported the paper.
Right.
This will help a great deal.
Now, that's a great consistency there. Now, talking about challenges, we cannot but talk about the late Data Haidara. You have worked with him closely. What was his stance on media freedom and freedom of expression?
First, let me tell you to Data Haidara. He was my childhood friend. We started our career with Radio Seat, 1970. Then to 1991, we decided to have our own newspaper. Data was a man, an icon of the media, who was fighting for the voiceless. He was very dynamic always to make sure that things will happen in the right way and right manner. So he left a legacy that I am continuing. I'm sure that every Monday you read this column, Good Morning, Mr. President, which help the President to be advised in certain subjects of the week. So he left a legacy that we cannot forget.
Right.
And then, Mrs. Sen, talking about the difficult circumstances you've worked on there, you've been jailed at some point alongside your compatriots. The editor there, Data Haidara, was killed, brutally killed for that matter, because he was fighting for freedom of expression in the Gambia alongside the press freedom. Do you think what he fought for and then got killed along the line, 17 years on, still obtains?
Well, we thank God now there's a big changes. With the Barrow government, to be honest, there's a very big changes, because there's no longer self-censorship.
Right.
I'm telling you the truth, not flatting, but the situation, because now when a journalist, you are free to express your view in your editorial line. There's no killing or burning of media houses or even burning in your house. So many things happen in Jammeh's time. But with the current regime, we work with peaceful mind. There's a freedom of expression, freedom of press. So thank God for that. You know, every time is right and also right to give credit where it's due. So because beside the paper, you know, I'm representative of RSF, and every year we make report and monitoring the media situation in the Gambia. So far, so good, because during Barrow's time, we made very good progress. Now in Africa, we are among the 10. During Jammeh's time, we are the 5 last in the queue. And so there's a big progress on press freedom, then credit to the new government.
And then quickly, despite the challenges, your colleague being slain, you incarcerated alongside your colleagues, you continue to be resolute in your fight to ensure that the press in the Gambia is free and people are also free in expressing their views. Could you please tell us how this has paved the way for the media in the country and where it has positioned the country's media fraternity?
I said so. I said that as the RSF correspondent, you notice that during Barrow's legacy, Barrow's time, there's a big achievement in terms of press freedom ranking. Because during Jammeh's time, we only beat that time Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, Eritrea. Then we are among the last. Now we are among the 10, which is a good achievement, good progress for the country on press freedom. Now what the new government should do, one, to abolish the media laws, because it still exists.
Right.
Two, to support the media in terms of advertising, in terms of subscription, in terms of payment to be regular and in time.
All right, Mr. Sen, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much and congratulations on your 30th anniversary.
Thank you too, and many happy returns, because today also is your anniversary, is the 26th anniversary of GRTS.
Absolutely.
And thank you for the good job with your DG Malik and the staff of GRTS. I wish you all good luck and keep up the good work that you are doing for the nation.
Now moving on, the Gambia Investment and Export Promotion Agency, GIPA, and the Ministry of Trade, Regional Integration and Employment, in collaboration with the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, recently concluded a 6-day training for 40 young entrepreneurs. Aissatou Jata Gassama reports.
This training is designed to unleash the potential of entrepreneurs through skill development meant to enhance their entrepreneurial competence. GIPA officials and partners urge participants to be committed to their respective ventures to become successful entrepreneurs and promise them of continuous support to achieve their dreams. Aziz Balagay from the Trade Ministry said this training will set the pace for these young entrepreneurs to excel.
MSMEs are quite important to the economy of the Gambia. The last MSME mapping shows that there are about 105,000 MSMEs, and this group of businesses, contribute over 20% to the GDP of the country. And not only that, but they act as employment. Because they also employ over 60% of the urban labor force. So that is a very critical sector for the Gambian economy. But we have a challenge, because if you look at the definition of MSMEs, over 98% of MSMEs in the Gambia fall under the micro the category based on the number of employees and their turnover. So we're hoping that those of you who are already in business can employ what you learn here, so that your businesses can grow and graduate to the other, the categories and have more employment.
Mohamed Jao, the founder and CEO of Lejumbo, an e-commerce company in the Gambia, had this message for the participants.
There are three most important ingredients to be a successful entrepreneur. You can be an entrepreneur, but to be a successful entrepreneur, rather, you need these ingredients inculcated in yourself. If not, it's going to be really, really difficult to be successful. And these are the three P's. The three P's are patience, persistence, and passion.
At the end of the program, participants were awarded certificates of merit for successfully and actively participating in the 6-day program. For the news, I am Esatu Gasama.
Now, 35 participants drawn from the 6 agricultural marketing federations across the country have been trained on market-led approach to agricultural production. The 4-day activity, organized by United Purpose, is supported by the Welsh Government to improve market linkages for farmers. Alajimbai picks up the rest of that story.
Marketing is one of the main challenges faced by members of the marketing federations. The capacity building on market-led approach to production focused mainly on agribusiness for youth and women in the social lasso organization. The training, according to the project officer of United Purpose Biofortification, Tom Sengor, will enable the producers to respond to market needs and opportunities.
You go to some of the big buyers like the hotels or the industries, what they will tell you is we cannot deal with our smallholder farmers because the quantity we need, it is not available. You go to some of the areas like the supermarkets and others, they will tell you we cannot deal with them because of the quality we need, they cannot produce it. So now we deem it necessary that let us be resounding this, though we have been telling them, but let us always be echoing it and resounding it with them that these are challenges that we need to overcome so that their producers can have a better access and can limit the challenges that they can have to be able to have business with these big buyers.
Lead trainer Lamin Sao explains the components of the training and its expected impact on production and productivity.
This training really looks at farming as a business. That is to kind of encourage farmers to begin to appreciate farming as a business rather than just the traditional subsistence approach to farming. At the end of the training, I hope that they will appreciate farming as a business and change towards inculcating business practices or business principles in their farming activities. I will advise farmers to ensure that whatever they produce is required in the market, that the market need whatever they are producing.
The capacity building, targeting mainly vegetable and biofortified crop producers, is expected to strengthen their marketing skills. This, according to Usman Mane of the Fonsoto Marketing Federation in West Coast Region, will improve their businesses and market-led approach to production amidst the impact of COVID-19.
The knowledge that I am going to gain out of this training will help me to, not only me, but to my members, that is the farmer organization that I am serving. It will help them better. This is something that is very important for all of us, and they are chosen out of the lot, and the message that they have should trickle down to the last person in the group.
The training is expected to help farmers develop small-scale businesses and marketing strategies that will enhance their recoveries from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and as well improve their economic status. Alajimbai, GRTS News.
Well, we will head for our first break now. The international news will follow just a moment. Welcome back. Over now to the internationals. Tension is flaring in Cameroon, where at least 100,000 people fled to neighboring countries as intercommunal violence broke out in the country. Over 40 people have been killed and dozens injured as fighting between farmers, herdsmen and fishermen continues in the Central African nation. More in this CGTN report.
Fighting began earlier this month in northern Cameroon. Clashes erupted between farmers, herders and fishermen over dwindling resources.
The clashes initially broke out in early December, following disputes between herders, fishermen and farmers over dwindling water resources. The climate crisis is, of course, exacerbating the competition for resources, especially water. The surface of Lake Chad has decreased by as much as 95% in the past 60 years.
The conflict has led to at least 100,000 people fleeing from their homes. UNHCR estimates over 85,000 people have so far gone to Chad.
Intercommunal clashes that erupted in Cameroon's far north region in the past 2 weeks have driven at least 100,000 people from their homes, although the real number may be much higher. We estimate that more than 85,000 people have fled into neighboring Chad in recent days, while at least 15,000 Cameroonians have been forced from home inside their country. Since humanitarian access in the area is very limited, these totals may in fact be much higher.
Majority of the new arrivals to Chad were children, with women accounting for 98% of adult arrivals, according to the UNHCR.
Refugees are in dire need of shelter, blankets, mats and hygiene kits. Some are being generously hosted by local communities, but most are still sleeping out in the open or under trees.
The UNHCR says it's working with the Cameroonian government on reconciliation efforts. Astatal, CGTN.
Now, authorities in the Democratic Republic of Congo have declared the country Ebola-free as no new case of the disease was recorded in the east of the country for more than 20 days. CGTN's Christo Chamringa reports from Kinshasa.
Congolese authorities have declared the country free of Ebola after going for 42 days without recording a new case in the eastern territory of Beni. The outbreak was announced on October 8th after a 3-year-old boy tested positive. It was reported in the same area where a major Ebola outbreak happened in 2018. Many Congolese citizens are happy the latest Ebola outbreak has ended in a volatile part of the country.
Many of our fellow citizens have been dying of gunshots fired by armed groups in the east of the country. I felt very sad when I heard about the Ebola outbreak there, but I'm now happy that the disease has been declared to be over.
En tant que Congolais, premièrement, je dirais d'abord merci à Dieu.
I thank God for bringing us this good news at the end of the year. I've never been to that part of our country, but I have seen images on TV of the suffering that people have gone through because of the Ebola virus.
The World Health Organization and several other aid agencies played an important role in supporting the DRC government to end the outbreak.
Quickly, we've got now capacity to detect quickly, to stop the spread of the disease and even to kill the disease. There is a new medicine, Ebanga, produced by Professor Muyembe against Ebola, and we use also the vaccine Everbo, who is the one used for vaccinated people. It was, now it's a relief. Now we are happy to see that it's finished.
Ebola is endemic in the DRC. The country has had 13 outbreaks since the disease was first discovered in 1976. The country's worst outbreak occurred between 2018 and 2020 in North Kivu province. It claimed nearly 2,300 lives. Scientists say the disease is transmitted to humans through infected bushmeat such as bats and monkeys. Authorities have put in place surveillance teams in Beni and its surrounding areas to ensure flare-ups don't happen in future. The latest Ebola outbreak in eastern DRC has been contained faster than a previous outbreak in the region thanks to the lessons the country has learnt in dealing with the infectious disease. Health experts have urged the public to stop eating wild animals that spread the Ebola virus, but that may not be easy to achieve in many remote parts of the DRC. Chris Ochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
And now, as conflict between government forces and Tigray forces intensifies, the United Nations Human Rights Council issued a report on what it described as a severe human rights violations and abuses. Here is Nada Al-Nashif, UN Deputy Commissioner for Human Rights.
The conflict has continued with ongoing fighting beyond the borders of Tigray. Our office continues to receive credible reports of severe human rights violations and abuses by all parties. The humanitarian impact of the conflict is increasingly dramatic. Acute food insecurity now affects more than 9.4 million people in northern Ethiopia, according to OCHA. Within Tigray, 5.2 million people, that is roughly 90% of the population, are in need. Only limited UN-organized humanitarian supplies have been able to enter Tigray since July, including food and vital medical supplies. In June, OCHA estimated that at least 400,000 people in Tigray were living in...
Well, that's all in this edition of the news, but before we go, a look at our top stories once more. The Vice President, Dr. Aissatou Touré, joins over 16 heads of state in the Turkish capital, Istanbul, for the third Turkey-Africa Partnership Summit. Celebrating 26 years of service, the Gambia Radio and Television Services continues to build on gains made in the broadcast industry in the Gambia. Today is International Migrants Day. GRTS examined the migration trend in the Gambia and how the pursuit for socio-economic advancement is driving migration figures in the country. 30 years in the media industry, The Point newspaper remains primed and poised to pursue a cause that it so firmly believes in. We went up close with the co-founder of the paper in the program. On the internationals, tension is flaring in Cameroon, where at least 100,000 people fled to neighboring countries as intercommunal violence broke out in the country. Elsewhere, authorities in the Democratic Republic of Congo declared the country Ebola-free as no new case of the disease was recorded in the east of the country for more than 20 days. Well, thanks for watching and do enjoy the rest of our programs here on GRTS TV. Well, from the entire newsroom, it's good night.